welcome back. Well, today we're going to finish up on the blood transfusions. We ran. This will be our third video on this. So this is the last one. Now, we gave the scenario of the guy in the thumbnail in the blue shirt. He's from the HLC committee, and he woke up in the hospital, and you'll see that on the last video. And so now he's in an elders meeting. He feels that JWs don't need blood, or they don't need to die because of this whole blood doctrine. And he's using that scripture that we had pulled up here. Let me see if I still have it. Yes, in Corinthians. We'll just flip over to that here. So if we were to go into, which Corinthians is this? The first of the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 25. And Paul was talking about, to the Corinthians, about eating things strangled, which would have blood in it, byproducts. You remember you and I were taught, perhaps, if you were a Jehovah's Witness, not to eat byproducts because there could be blood in it. Well, here in verse 25, Paul says, eat whatever is sold in the meat market, making no inquiry because of your conscience. So you don't have to make an inquiry, just eat what's ever there. For to Jehovah belongs the earth and everything in it. And he says, and this is to the Gentiles, right? So he's speaking to the Gentiles. And he says, if an unbeliever invites you in and wants you to go and eat whatever is set before you, make no inquiry. You know, I used to go to my mom's house, and she was considered worldly because she wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. So I would always check the labels on the wieners that she would buy. Sometimes she'd go to the supermarket, buy the cheap ones that had byproducts in it, and I wouldn't eat them. And so she was very conscious, my mom, the loving person she is, buying the proper wieners when I would come out. But you see, that's all false. If I would have known this in the Bible at the time, you don't make an inquiry. That's what it says here. But it says if an unbeliever invites you and you want to go, eat whatever's set before you. Make no inquiry on the account of your conscience. But if anyone says to you, this is something offered in sacrifice, do not eat it because of the one who told you, and because of conscience. And he says, I do not mean your conscience, but that of the other person. You know, for why should my freedom be judged by another person's conscience is the question. So I want to show you a quick video on this, because I think Jeffrey Winder in the latest on their latest site is saying something similar. Now I think I have that pulled up here somewhere. Let me just pause you and I'll grab it. Yeah, here it is. If you go to their website, this is what it looks like. You go to what's new, and Jeffrey Winder here on their morning worship, he said something similar to what we're just talking about. Okay, he gave a couple situations on modesty and how modesty should help us not to get involved in other people's medical lives. Let's see what he says here.
Things change depending on the subject matter of the advice being sought. So in this scenario, our friend is confiding in us a health problem that they're facing. And it's maybe a medical treatment that they're trying to decide on, and they're looking for some input. What's the modest course in this situation? Well, we genuinely feel for our friend, and we want to help them in any way that we can. But here too, the underlying principle of 1 Corinthians 4:6 applies. That is, not going beyond the limits of our authority. Well, what is our authority in this kind of a situation regarding health matters? Well, the Watchtower said, when faced with a health problem, each adult Christian must carry his own load of responsibility in choosing treatment, end quote. Well, then, keeping that in mind, modesty will help us to think carefully before we offer our own medical advice or before we discourage them from taking a prescribed treatment. But what can we do to help them? Well, certainly we...
So he talks about modesty and not getting involved. You know, we wouldn't want to help them make a medical decision. They make their own medical decision. It's kind of what Paul was saying in the scripture we just read. When it comes to choosing, it's your conscience. You're going to the market, what you're buying or what you're eating, it's your conscience. And he was talking about sacrifice, that scripture in Acts, about animals sacrificed, about the blood, and so forth. So it was a conscience matter. Okay, so we're at the Elders book, and we're looking into the blood. I typed blood in, it comes up 15 times. And we're going to this section, willingly and unrepentantly accepting blood. So this is under disassociation. So I found that within the Jehovah's Witness organization, you get my lighting right. They will meet with you, and because the blood is part of the doctrine, they believe that's just part of being a Jehovah's Witness, is not accepting blood. It's just part of their doctrine. And that was study 39, remember, in their study lesson book, and there's videos affiliated with it, and they sign out the blood cards and everything, carry those in their wallets. So now when a person does all of those things, they're baptized, and they go to the hospital, and for whatever situation, they take a blood transfusion, they're automatically disassociating themselves from the religion because they didn't die. They chose life over death. So now you disassociated yourself. So here's what it says in the Elders book. It's action. Disfellowshipping is action taken by a judicial committee against a wrongdoer, but disassociation is an action taken by the individual who no longer desires to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So you see, if you take a blood transfusion, it means that you no longer desire to be a Jehovah's Witness. So here, they even have it right here. Where is that? Actions taken, making known a firm decision, joining another religious group, or right here, number 3, willingly and unrepentantly accepting blood. So let's read this section together. It says, if someone willingly accepts a blood transfusion, perhaps because of being under extreme pressure, a committee, not judicial, should be obtained, and the facts determine the individual's attitude. If he is repentant, the committee would provide spiritual assistance in the spirit of Galatians, and since he is spiritually weak, he would not qualify for special privileges for a period of time. So it would depend on the person's attitude. So if you took the blood transfusion, saved your life, and just came back and said, well, I was just under pressure or whatever. So what they'll make you do is go back and study lesson 39, go through all those videos again. They'll reaffirm your supposed belief in the blood doctrine, which would confirm your belief in the religion. You'd be going to all the meetings. So you could do it that way, or you just simply tell them how you feel. That I feel it's okay. I've read the scripture here. You reference the scripture in 1 Corinthians 10 and 25. Paul said it's a matter of conscience. Reference the video from the morning worship 2 days ago. Jeffrey Winder said, it would be modest not to get involved in a person's medical business and what they're prescribed between the doctor. It'd be modest not to get involved. So how does this all work? That would be my defense, and probably you'd be called not repentant. So it would mean that you're not going with the blood doctrine, so you're unrepentant. And so what they say then, in some cases, it may be also necessary to remove privileges. So that's if a brother were to come back. And depending on the circumstances, a committee may also need to arrange for an announcement to the congregation at the midweek meetings. And here's what the announcement says. It says, because you wouldn't be going, you decided you're going to quit, right? Because of this, you're unrepentant. So it says here that the announcement would say the elders have handled a matter having to do with Vern Hoole, handling matter. Yeah, and you will be glad to know that the spiritual shepherds are endeavoring to render assistance. So let's say people would know that I was kind of going astray. They were talking, gossiping. This way they have an announcement telling them that I'm being addressed by the elders. And it goes on to say, on the other hand, if the elders on the committee determine that he is unrepentant, they should announce his disassociation. So right there they would say, and Vern Hoole, they wouldn't call him a brother no more, is unrepentant or disassociated. Yeah, they'd say Vern Hoole has disassociated himself, and they'd make that announcement. I think it talks about this at the end. Yeah, it does. There's no appeal because you've disassociated yourself. So this all made sense. I know in my situation, when I quit going, they sent 2 elders to my house, and they always send 2 because it's at the mouth of 2 witnesses. They can both go back and say, yeah, he said that. And I know when they sent 2 elders to my place, they probably asked me a bunch of stuff. I just wasn't in the frame of mind at that point in time to talk about it, and I just said, get out and don't come back. And they never did. So I'm sure that meant I disassociated myself. It was that simple. So there's different ways. And then it was 8 years later, I met an elder in a grocery store, and I said, hey, so-and-so up north wants to study. And I lined that all up. And then next thing I know, he invited me for coffee. I met him and another elder for coffee, and they asked me a bunch of stuff if I'd ever thought of going back and stuff. And I don't, no, I'm never going to go back. So maybe they disassociated me a second time, even though I sent in people to study with them. Like I wasn't fully awoken. Like, who would do that, right? But anyways, it happens, and that's what happens. But we disassociate ourselves. It's very easy to disassociate yourself. You just don't agree with stuff, and you're disassociated. It's that simple. So that's kind of it for this part on the Elders book with our little scenario. HLC member, anybody for that matter. If you just disagree with something, you don't have to do anything wrong, but you disagree, you've disassociated yourself. It's really not complicated. And why would you want to be involved with an organization that is supporting people, getting in between people's lives, they get their nose into people's medical decisions? Like, it's nonsense. There's no other religion on earth that I know of that really that does that. They don't do that. That's not what a shepherd does, and there's no scriptural support for that. So I'm just going through this book. If you can see any areas that you would like me to cover in this book, I can certainly do that. Determining whether a judicial committee should be formed, I think that's a section I'm gonna cover off on, and it shows all of the different areas that you can get disfellowshipped over. So it's interesting. There's even bestiality, I think, in there. There's some weird stuff. So and then they have a separate section on pornography. 12 and 13. So we might look at that. This is a book that you won't see. It's not on the market. The average Jehovah's Witness can't see this unless you're an elder. So we're showing this book to the people so that they can see into it. There's nothing secret. This book holds no power over you. It cannot make things happen or make objects move. This book only has power over us if we allow it to. So we're the decision makers. We make the choices. As we go through this book, we see it's a book of nonsense. It's a book that's designed to instill fear. And most of this book is about disfellowshipping. When I plugged in the word disfellowshipping 130 times, this is a book to instill fear, to show the shepherds how to shepherd fear, how to disfellowship, all the reasons for disfellowshipping. So we're going to look at that next time, folks. Disfellowshipping, and all the reasons you can get disfellowship. So now we covered off in the blood. I think it's a serious one. It's the most feeblest scriptural supported doctrine I've ever seen. And again, I'm going to put some links in the description of this video. So if you want to know more about this and get some help on this blood doctrine, there's lots of information. Well, folks, that brings an end to our program. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Oh, hello! My name is Vern. Join the channel. We cover JW World News, and we give you the rest of the story. Today, we're going to the Watchtower, and we have lives on Tuesday nights and Saturdays, and an excellent community. So join the channel and watch as we crash into the Watchtower. Here it is, I see it coming. Woo! Join us as we report in on the Watchtower.